the open public hearing, open at 7:03. Are we on, Stephen?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Okay, so we're live. Roll call for the council. Can we just point out that everyone is in attendance? And recognize our visitors in the gallery.
Jess and Lynn.
Thank you, Jess.
Karen Allen.
Karen, thank you.
Jesse Allen.
Hi, Jesse.
Wait, what? What just happened here?
Gave the answer.
Oh.
Welcome.
Brent Wilde.
Brent, thank you.
One myself.
Olivia Harnett.
Yeah, Olivia. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for public comments for the hearing, I just kind of wanted to let you guys know the purpose, a little more elaboration on the purpose of the meeting for the water rates. So realistically, we should be doing something along these lines annually, just to keep up our water rates up with inflation. We've got a little more stress on our water system right now, and information has been developing literally daily. So last year, in the middle of the year, we were given the opportunity to get a $1.2 million, can't call it a grant, but basically money from the state. Turns out that it's 85% loan and 15% would be a grant. So if we were to accept it, and the purpose of this $1.2 million is literally to get a new well, that's up to $1.2 million, to put a new well, new hole, new facility in the city to get water out of the ground. The reason for that is our well number one is not necessarily productive year-round, and it's old and it's tired, and we're just trying to get ahead of it to get that replaced. With what amounts to a 1.08 and change loan at their interest rate. It's a 20-year low interest loan at 1.7%. Doing the math, it would amount to the potential of $20.30 per month per household in the city of Harrington for 20 years to pay that off. So that is what prompted this discussion today. Today, I was able to meet with a well expert.
Okay.
The one from Odessa?
From
Moses.
from,
Moses.
Moses Lake.
Yeah, okay.
We turned on well number one, which is not well, to have him listen to it and to get a better assessment on what's going on with it. At the end of that, he determined that there's the well is not completely inoperable. It will be if we turn it on and leave it on, but the engine or the motor on it probably needs to have the lower bearing replaced. Some other work, there's some packing that needs to be reinforced and updated. Even though it's relatively new, it needs to be repacked. There's some pieces that are missing from the bottom of the motor that keeps the water from splashing up inside an electric motor. So he wants to get on that. And probably the most sinister was he could hear some wobble, feel some wobble in the shaft below the motor. He thinks it's probably not super deep, but is suggesting that we pull the motor, get the motor tuned up, rebuilt, if you will, and then pull the shaft up, and he thinks probably 2 of the carrier bearings probably need to be replaced. And, I mean, it's kind of the, you see what you get. So
Right.
until we pull it up, we're not gonna know the difference. But hopefully, best case scenario, we get away with replacing 1 or 2 of those. That would
Worst
buy
case
us
scenario, how many are there?
120 feet of them, so probably
Probably every 20 feet, I would
12,
guess.
12 or so, I would say.
And that is a turbine.
It is a turbine. So, depending on how far it goes, to do what he's optimum hopefully do, a rough idea of the cost would be about $25,000 to pull it all and repair that much of it. Worst case scenario, he had to go all the way down and didn't have to replace the casing, maybe 35 or 40,000. And that could, you know, in my way of thinking, that could buy us 5 years on that before really having to get into it. The other thing I spoke to is when and if we take this loan, even if we started right now, we probably don't have a replacement functioning well for at least 2 years. Just by the time all the red tape, administrative stuff and everything gets done, plus the construction. So,
The new well.
a new well, a new well, yeah. So,
Were you gonna touch, Mr. Mayor, sorry, were you gonna touch on the geotech engineering, the site?
we have a site that we've identified. The site that is on the other side of the tracks, just north of the school, which is locally referred to as Ecology Park. If I remember
It is,
correctly.
yeah.
That is, at least for the Lincoln County Department of Health, acceptable location. So now it goes to the next step where the geoengineer goes in and just verifies that based on their information,
They're not
there's
concerned
water
about it.
underneath there.
They're not concerned about it being in the floodplain?
No.
Runoff area.
Runoff. Well, no, it's technically a floodplain, isn't it?
It technically is a floodplain right there,
Yeah.
but no, that was not a concern. I think where it's physically located is up high enough, it's probably out of that 100-year flood zone, but because the parcel is in part within a flood zone, the whole area gets designated that.
It's quite considerably higher than the floodplain. I mean, this side of the tracks.
Yeah, well, the
So,
other, yeah, even the other
but
side,
They're more concerned about field agricultural runoff and
They
stuff.
won't- they
They
won't.
don't care?
no.
Okay.
They were more concerned about using the space that we potentially looked at next to the cemetery, that was not acceptable. So,
Because,
there are things in a cemetery that they do not want in their 100-foot buffer zone.
Right.
you know, that's what I thought I'd hear, but I wanted to hear that was true.
So that's my part. Anybody in the audience have comments or concerns or questions? Jess, go.
So he was talking to pull out casings, and he thinks he can get those casings apart.
Not the casing, the,
When you pull out the shaft, the casings screw together, and they thought they
Well-
could separate those casings or cut them and have to replace them.
he didn't get into the nitty-gritty of it, but he felt, yeah, so the pipe that the water comes up through, yeah, he'll have to pull that out for at least 2 layers down.
The motor
Yeah.
and the housing
Yeah,
of the Pomona pump,
yeah.
correct. Okay, and then he's gotta pull casings up. Picture like the long tubes, a couple of them sitting out behind the shop, big tapered thread on them.
But there's a difference.
Right, yeah,
That's the one the shaft
Yeah.
goes down and
Mhm.
the pump sets down in there.
yeah.
So when I think of this whole thing, this well, there's 3 major parts of this. We got number 1, the aquifer, our underground lake, which is, and we talk about this thing being 100 years old. Are we saying that we think that aquifer is no longer acceptable to pump from or has diminished to the point?
The only positive thing we can say is last summer, when we tried to repress it into action,
Yeah,
it was sucking in. in part.
Okay. So the second part of the pump, there is an aquifer. There's all the hardware and the pump on that one. It happens to be
The
a
turbine.
shaft-driven turbine pump
Yep.
and a motor on top that drives it. So if the pump has problems, obviously it won't suck water. And I know that you can't put the measuring device down that well as you can this one here. He comes, the fella from the
From Davenport.
safety,
Yeah.
yeah, he comes and he pressurizes the pump. I'm not sure why he does that. Unscrews the cap and he drops a physical tape down there. When it comes in contact with the water, it gives him a beep.
Mhm.
You can't do that at well number 1.
No, and you don't have to do it at well number 3 anymore either.
Yeah,
They have what they call an air tape.
but, well, that's cool. Anyway, because some of that was because there was old rusted parts underneath the pump. So when we take this, say, if they pull it all apart, they're going to R&R that whole pump, pull the pump out and replace it or repair it too.
What he's thinking is, so there's basically carrier bearings.
Yeah,
He's thinking the top 2 of those are what's gone bad.
yeah, that also. And he
So-
can do that for under $50,000.
That's, I don't have a firm deal, but that's his initial, I mean, his
It
initial
sounds-
reaction for what he described was probably about 25 grand.
It's just a wonderful deal if that could happen.
If we got 5 years out of it, at that point, that's $5,000 a year, which is cheap maintenance for something like that.
Absolutely.
If it's possible for him to pull it and replace all the carrier bearings, do we get more time out of the pump?
Yeah, I would say, because that,
If he's
The
gonna take it
motor on the
apart, we might
top.
as well do it all.
yeah,
Yeah.
the motor on the top is the easiest, but I'm just thinking, just an economic scale, we'll have to find out how far it goes. Mike, I also have to find out from the Department of Health, at what point in time, when you pull things out, are you not able to put them back in? Because we can't just drill a new well in that same location, that's not permitted. So I'm trying to find out where the fine line is between a new pump or rebuilding. So, from a Department of Health point of view. So, I
Did
don't have
he-
that answer yet.
Did he say anything about what had been floated before about the concept of that well shaft being bent again?
He did not bring that up.
Because at the end of the day, if that well shaft and its ability to get water is sustainable, you can theoretically do there what we did here, right? Put a different, you don't need to drill a new well. But if I'm understanding this right, we don't know, we haven't actually done a production test on that well, so we don't know like what it can actually draw anymore. We just know that in the summertime it's been drawing down to the point where it goes completely dry. So
Not completely dry, it's dry to where the pump is.
well, yes.
The pump is probably not at the bottom of the hole.
Yes and no. So one of the things that we realized
Below the static level.
Yeah.
number of months back was that this last summer was the first time that pump had ran in the summertime in anyone's memory. When we talked to Bunny and everyone else, so the thing is, we can only measure down to what, 14 feet or something?
about 8
Or
feet.
8 feet, okay. So all we know is that those levels start plummeting every year in April and May, and then they just start shooting down. For all we know, for the last 10 years, that well could have been completely dry as far as its ability to pump water, and we never would have known it because we never used that well in the summertime.
Truth.
Its ability to pump, or I should put it this way, its inability to pump in the summertime might not be a new development.
Correct. Now, if we do open it up, we will definitely put the air tape in there before it gets, regardless of how much we do, but we're putting an air tape in so we can measure it anytime how deep the water is. So that's a cheap solution.
And to add, to add to that little history, maybe Councilman Ostrich can back it up maybe. historically, we had the two wells, a summer well and a winter well. And for what reason? And there was a different taste in water too. One tasted a little better, but it was all good water. But it was, in the summer months, we had more stuff going on. And this well, I don't know if I've never ever heard it go dry or suck in air, but it just wouldn't, what the terminology was, it wouldn't keep up, I think, years ago. So whether that made it dry or down below the water table, I don't know. But it's historically, it's been summer well and a winter well. And the winter well is the one we're talking about right now.
The winter of 23 to 24.
Is that what you always heard?
We were on the winter well,
Mhm.
well number 1. And early in January, it stopped pulling water in the middle of the night. Well, that's when we had the big water leak over on Willis Street.
Mhm.
I am fairly certain that the water that was coming out of the
Couldn't
hole
keep
in
up.
Willis Street was basically draining everything, and that pump couldn't keep up with it. So that's when we switched to pump number 3, and we ran on that because it had the higher capacity. And we limped along with that until that water line got fixed. And then in May, well number 3.
And we also had the creek.
Yeah, we had a hole up there that's, the water in the creek was
Man-made creek.
man-made creek, yep.
So, I mean, we had
So,
some issues.
We had some issues, so we've gotten those fixed. Just in the meantime, I think last summer, when well number 3 went down, well number 1 got worked pretty hard. So when we didn't have to use it anymore, we stopped. And then when we went to refire it up, it was dry or whatever the case was, and it's just not sounding healthy.
But as we're talking about this, and it's good to have the former mayor in the audience, wasn't there an issue or concern about maybe a hole or something sucking air in the pipe or the suction of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was causing it?
Below the wellhead.
Yeah, and there's still that concern. There's also a possibility that there is a check valve that has gone bad
Right,
that
yeah,
we should
that'll
be
do
able
it.
to get access to that is causing that, so,
Yeah, perfect time to go through all.
yeah.
And the original manuals and all that, with everything.
Not with me right now, but,
We do have them here.
okay.
So is the consideration that we're pausing the idea of accepting that grant and we're going to fix well number 1 and see if it will fully function?
My suggestion is this, and we're gonna cover it later on, but I'll just throw it out since we're here. My suggestion is we do accept the loan. We don't have to start servicing that loan until we actually start using it. There is no loan origination fees, so if we, in the 9th hour, say, nope, we don't want it, we can pull the plug on it and it won't cost us anything. But if we don't accept it, those funds are gonna get reallocated to somebody else and they're gone.
And will it take a act of council, the government, to vote yes to use it at that time?
I think if we say we wanna use it, it's go time for it until we say we're not going to do it. But there would still have to be contracts to be signed, so in a sense, yeah, if we had a bid and you guys didn't want to accept the bid, then it's, the council controls that.
And the cost is up to a dollar amount. It's not, how much is it actually gonna cost us to put a new well in?
It's correct, at this point, it's up to 1.2 to put in a well and all the fixtures and bring everything up to code. It would also, if we did that, well number 1 would then be taken offline, capped. We can put a tape down it and watch it from a water table.
Observation.
maintenance,
Wow.
Just to watch it, but we can't use it. Because we would no longer be licensed to use that for a water source.
They won't allow a license, or we don't want to pay extra for that license?
I got the impression that we're gonna get 2, and that's all. For a city this size, that's all we're gonna
Okay.
get.
I can say it'd be nice to have a well on the other side of the tracks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've told Joe that's a priority for me for a while.
Yeah. So like I said, we could accept it. We don't have to start servicing that loan until we start using it, which could, like I said, be a year and a half, 2 years down the road.
So we're really sure that we can take $1.2 million and sit on it for a year and just say nope and give it all back and we'll be whole to the penny.
That's, yeah, we don't pay a nickel. From what I understand, we don't pay a nickel until it starts.
And they don't have any, like, from their perspective, when we say yes, we haven't agreed to anything other than if we do use it, we use it for the given purpose.
That's what I'm being told, yes.
Alright.
Oops, that's true.
I feel like that's the big bet.
Guess what?
If that's true, I might be on board with that, but it almost feels like it can't be that simple.
Well, if we don't accept it, Plan B, what's our options? To write another grant or in the future? Not right.
I mean, we keep limping along with what we got, you know, we know what it's gonna cost to, eventually, it could be 2 years from now, it could be 10 years from, it could be another 50 years. We don't know when that's gonna go down. The biggest issue that we have with that well is we genuinely do not know if it is able to produce during the summer. It produced up until June because we had everyone on water restrictions. But
And that's with all the water leaks.
that was with the water leaks fixed in June.
Well, I think we also have to consider, at least as far as, and I could be wrong, I'm not a well expert, but from what I understand, generally they wouldn't allow us to drill 2 wells that close if we were starting all over again today. And if I'm understanding the way the hydrology is supposed to work at least well enough, because they are so close, they don't really count as separate locations. So because, like when that was drilled 100 years ago, there was no other well in the area that was competing nearly as much. Then well 3 came in, and then we've upgraded it, the amount we can draw. So there are other sources that are drawing out of that same area. If you put something over across the tracks, you're further away and there's more ability to tap into the aquifer at 2 different locations. But I guess my point is that it's not maybe super likely that that well can do what we need because it's almost an extension of the well right over there, really, rather than it being a separate entity, other than the hardware is different.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody has defined whether
If they're hooked
the
together.
golf is on, the golf course is on a different aquifer, or what the separation is. I'm under the assumption that it's basically one big lake of water underneath us, and it's all,
I believe that's what
It's
the
just-
well tester guy said. Not that he has a degree in it, but I believe that's what he asserted.
so. Anyway, this is, any other questions from the audience with regard to this?
How would that money be put on our bill? Just raise the water bill?
Just
I mean, our
raise-
water bill's broke into 3. We got a water bill, a town utility tax, and a sewer.
So it would be the water portion of it, plus any associated excise tax that goes with water utility bills. I will say also, since we're in the weeds on this, I went through the budget pretty hard, 2024, on the actual, what the revenues were for water coming into the city and what our expenses were. And we're pretty much at a break even right now today. So between paying the cost of electricity, the repairs to the different pieces of water system throughout the city, that we paid for, not Don or a grant. So these are hard costs. We're, you know, labor and all the rest of it that goes with it, we're pretty much break even right now.
When we're not funding our own infrastructure expenses. Because we aren't paying 650 grand for a pipe under the tracks, and we're not paying 100 grand for a new well
Yeah,
there.
I'm not taking the $60,000 into consideration, because that was just pass-through money. That was a
Sure,
straight-
I guess I'm just trying to make the point that I wouldn't want people to get the wrong impression to say that we're at break even, because we're talking about raising rates. And so if we give people the impression here that, well, we're doing all this at cost right now, then a person's gonna say, well, then why do you need to raise rates? We're not doing this anywhere near at cost because we're not funding the biggest infrastructure portions of it. Thankfully, the state has done that for us.
True.
But it takes more to actually operate this system than what
Well,
we're,
and this well repair, when it's needed, I mean, that would put us upside down.
Mhm.
Plus, electricity costs are not going, anyway, the bottom line is, we, like I said in the beginning, we should be having this discussion every year.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
Repair costs for well number 1 would come out of city coffers.
Yes.
Okay. We don't get a treasurer's report anymore, so do we have the funds to cover that and still stay in reasonable shape?
We are gonna have to do some juggling. And realistically, we're working towards this too. I anticipate that we'll be pulling some money out of the investment fund proportionately for the cemetery and the city, and that's,
That has never been done yet,
has not been done yet.
so it hasn't been done since it's moved. You can take out like 3 years worth of that.
So,
Well, just clarify, there's an endowment for the cemetery, that
Cemetery.
stays with cemetery, and then there's city
Yeah.
funds that presently are commingled with it that we have to.
yeah.
All the
And we
interest
are,
belongs to the city.
yeah, we are working in City Hall actively on historically getting all the numbers so we can separate those two. And then, yes, all the money that would come out would go proportionately to the cemetery and
Right,
everything else.
just, yeah, just brought that up to clarify, so
Yeah.
everybody knew.
No, I'm very sensitive to that, but if it's gonna be done, it's gonna be done correctly.
Or maybe a scenario, I know I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly when it was, but they had a project and they raised the rates temporarily until it was paid off and then reduced them again.
That's what I was gonna ask. Are we considering a temporary increase just to cover the cost of the repairs?
That was gonna be part of our conversation later on, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'll leave it for
I-
discussion later then.
Yeah.
From the folks in the crowd,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that? A temporary increase to cover the cost of the repairs of well 1?
I have more questions about the structure of this loan. The 15%, is that a fixed dollar amount or is it a fixed portion of the loan?
It's going to be a fixed percentage.
Okay.
So if we don't have to go all the way to 1.2,
Right.
if we go to 1 million,
So the grant portion increases as we use more, yes, I get that.
correct. Well, or decreases as we, so we know we can go up to 1.2.
Right.
If we get it
Probably should read that
done by,
language.
for 1 million,
Mhm.
then we'd have a $15,000 grant. And 800, I'm sorry, did I do that right? No. $150,000
Yeah.
grant and $850,000 loan. So it's still in our best interest to get it done as economically as possible.
Yes.
So,
I can see.
so I just thrown out the worst case scenario. Any other questions on that one?
Not currently.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
The reality is, we've not changed our water rates, I think.
Quite a while.
Yeah. We changed our garbage rates a couple of times. I
2019.
think we changed our wastewater rates in 2019, 2020.
Mhm.
To the best of my knowledge, we've not touched water rates in at least 6 or 7 years that I know of. I didn't do much looking beyond that.
Yeah.
And they're not structured very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's another that's another conversation that we need to have.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
part of potential increases depending on how it's structured.
Right now, we are giving away water extremely cheaply compared to the rest of the Lincoln County communities. But we charge a flat rate for 5,000 gallons a month. The flat rate is low compared to, and the $5,000 a month, I think, is at the top.
Okay,
of it.
gallons.
Yeah, 5,000 gallons a month. What'd I say?
Yeah, dollars.
Oh,
Well,
5,000 gallons a month is high in any community. And
Generous,
beyond
yeah.
that, we're charging 25 cents per $1,000 or per 1,000 gallons a month over that, which is extremely low, extremely low. So. Karen?
So I might have missed the meeting, more than likely, but is there a plan for the meters?
The yeah,
Replacement?
yes.
Okay.
Our water system plan, which is
A plan?
hopefully almost done. It's, I think the third variation is at the Department of Health right now for approval. That plan will include meters, brand new meters throughout the entire city. It'll also include basically new water lines through the entire city, but the water meters are part of it too.
And to clarify, that's just a plan. No
Yeah.
one's working on how to fund that.
Yeah, that's,
That's the plan you need to actually apply for the grants to fund it.
yeah.
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 But
And
you
it-
still have to have a plan.
You have
Yep.
to have a plan approved, and then you can start working on getting it funded. So,
Seems like that would be helpful for addressing some of the water.
yeah, it's tough to
Costs.
start adjusting water rates when we don't have,
At that time, can we also loop the system?
I believe that's.
That was in there?
That's, yeah, I believe in there, there will be a request for a second water line underneath the city to do just that.
Well, if you put the main pump over there, on the other side of the tracks.
The initial information I heard that when they did this, we would no longer have a winter and a summer pump. We would alternate every other day, every other week, but it would be this pump A, pump B, well, technically pump 3 and pump 4, they would just, and the system would be automated, computerized, where we'd be able to switch.
Shared pumping duties?
Yeah, so we're not
If-
taxing one, we're pulling it from here or there.
If we did what? Drill a new well or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little, we don't even know what the new well would put out.
Well, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, it's all under our feet. So there is a lot of unknowns, but I mean, there's a lot of science that goes behind it too. I hope. Okay. Jess, any other? Okay. Any other comments or questions from the?
You asked if we thought there should be a temporary increase in water, a surcharge, some kind of an add-on for well, R&R of well number 1.
Oh, R&R. Were you talking about R&R of well number 1?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what Chris was asking.
How
Okay.
would you feel about that?
Well, it's gotta be paid for somehow.
Temporarily raising the rates, you mean? Because I don't think we can grant the
I'm
grants.
not
Or a
gonna
flat fee or
volunteer
something.
everybody for that, but.
No, but because the grant money, from what I understand, won't cover that.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I was amazed at the cost of what he quoted you. But in today's world,
It's,
quotes don't seem to be,
yeah, I don't have that in writing yet, but that's,
I guess probably my question for the public is, what would you more want to take it? You want to be on the hook for 20 plus years at a higher rate and possibly going higher? Or would you want to take it up front and fix the well we have and gamble that way? That'd be my question to everybody.
I don't think we have the option of just leaving that thing set, do we?
We do once another well goes in.
That's just
That's
putting
up to
gambling.
2 years though.
yeah, that's,
If we do nothing, we're just putting
Right.
all our eggs in this basket right next door in this little,
Probably one of the most pertinent questions is, can we really take the loan and give it back a year later with no
Strings.
adverse effects? If the answer is yes, then I don't see a reason why we wouldn't take it to have it in our pocket. I still have misgivings about the concept of actually going forward and using the money, but the loans and federal things and all money flow is changing, and if we aren't careful, this option is going to go away from us. So when we talk about, David, to your point of do you do it up front or do you do the whole thing later, from a standpoint of what do we have to vote on in front of us soon, probably the answer right now is both. Would be to take the loan for the option and then pursue the fix in the short term and then see if we need to actually use it when it comes to it.
Given that information, is there any other obligations requirements that the city has to meet for this loan? I mean, that fine print down there that we're aware of?
So I have not read it yet because we have not told them we're going to move forward with it. So I don't have the final agreement to read. The only thing we have is basically the original grant application and them telling us that we had the grant plus the terms that they were going to offer after that. The only thing I was able to get verified is there is no loan fee. So
Or obligations?
even if we back out, it's not like we're paying a 1% loan fee to tie up $1 million. So I can tell you, I've been getting a lot of pressure to get this accepted or not accepted because the state wants to get the money dedicated to a project before they lose it.
And how many years do we can let it sit idle? Yeah.
I am assuming that if it's like every other contract, once we accept it, we have to start moving towards that goal. But like I said,
Which will also have to dig in and pay it, use it.
No, because you can pull bids on the construction, you can pull.
But it-
we're still waiting. We have until June to find out if that
I would
piece
hope
of property is even viable.
Right.
But we have another grant that's paying for that.
That's true, and that's
We're not
independent.
funding anything associated with the construction of a new well. We've already got funds to cover determining whether or not we can put in a well.
Correct.
True.
At that location.
That's the big difference. If we're not paying to find out if we can actually put a well in, because we've already got a grant for that money.
Yep, which is separate. And that's 100% grant. That's just,
But they're not gonna wanna do something like, you accept this, okay, to move forward, we're gonna have to do a study, you know what I mean?
That's all in the original grant that we already got.
well, that's technically the secondary grant. 'cause
Everybody
that
has to
came
do a
out
study,
afterwards,
and-
so.
I agree with them, no, but I mean, I just wonder what the gotcha are, or what the, the clauses are and stuff, without seeing the document.
Well, since we are still in a public hearing, the vote of this will be a separate issue. Is there any more public hearing to do?
Any other comments from the gallery? Okay. I think I will, unless there's any objection, close our public hearing. So we will close our public hearing at 7:42. And I will welcome everybody to the Harrington regular council meeting. That being said, any public comments? Questions? Stuff you guys wanted to discuss?
Sure, I can go ahead. All right, usually I believe the clerk should get the monthly stats or email.
I believe so,
but,
yes.
I have the January stats for this year, as well as all of 2024 stats. So I'll go back to the 2024 stats. I'll just read over some brief ones to you. For all of 2024, we had a total of 135 calls for service here in Harrington. Briefly going over that, we had 2 abandoned vehicle calls, 10 alarm calls, and I can pretty much tell you that was all pretty much the school. They're working on, they had an issue up there, even though we had one about 2 o'clock this morning. We're not sure what that was, but the deputy responded and it was secured. Looks like overall we had listed about 7 animal problems, 2 assault calls, 3 looks like agency assists, 3 calls that were burglaries or suggested as non-residential burglaries, with 1 residential burglary. That's at least what they were considered as. 1 custodial interference, 3 citizens assists, 11 civil issues. Fortunately, we had 1 dead body call, so that I believe it was an unattended call here. It was at the end of the year, if I remember right. 1 disorderly conduct, 5 cases that were listed as domestic violence related, 3 fraud cases, 1 fireworks case, a harassment call, 2 juvenile problems. The big one, which we call is the catch-all for most calls, is the suspicious persons or circumstances. We had 21 of those. We had 3 RSO checks, or registered sex offender checks here. 2 traffic collisions, 2 thefts, looks like thefts of property, 2 threatenings. In the city limits of Harrington, we had 17 traffic offenses, so that would be traffic stops, trespassing, and 13 welfare checks. Again, for 135 calls for service over the whole year. For the month of January, we had 5 calls for service. 2 suspicious persons or circumstances, 2 RSO checks, and 1 welfare check. One of the things, I'm sure some of you probably know, Chris probably knows, is this weekend is the local basketball tournament between the Reardon, Davenport, and Harrington all share the gyms for. So that'll start, I believe, at all locations starting Friday evening at roughly 4 or thereabouts, and run day pretty much all day Saturday and most part of Sunday, depending on championship games. Last year we parked a car on Harrington Tokyo Coakley, and we'll look at we'll do that again. I know the mayor said that in council, he said that last year it did help.
It did.
So we'll try to get one out probably tomorrow or sometime Friday. Okay. And then we put it out to all our patrol deputies that they'll be in and out around here patrolling the areas, looking for those.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So, okay. Any other people or comments? Questions? Okay. All right. Moving on our agenda, do we have any solicitations to the agenda from our council?
I just wanted to talk about the endowment. We kind of touched on it, the cemetery endowment fund, just in brief.
And I saw your email regarding parking and code enforcement in general. We might want to have a little discussion about. And then a brief item about in regards to city participation on chamber, please.
I'd like to add an item about the city requesting the fire department burn off the 3.5 feet of weeds on Ecology Park.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Stephen, you said code enforcement and?
Talking about the city's participation in chamber.
Oh. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is what we just had our public hearing about, is the acceptance of the Public Works Board loan with the intent to replace well number 3 with a new one. So there's no formal paperwork at this point. I just need to tell the Department of Health, yay or nay, that we want to accept the funds for the future construction. Do we have any other questions on that, or comments, or motions?
I have one, just, if we don't accept the funds, how long do we have, how long do we have to decide to accept the funds?
We're
Pushing the limit already.
at that point.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I misunderstood what we're looking, okay, I'm good with this.
That
I'm good with this.
grant was awarded in, I think, September. So we've been sitting on it for a while. They want to know whether we're.
I misunderstood.
So,
No, you're fine.
So are you looking for a motion to accept it?
yeah.
I'll move under proviso, at least between you and I, Mr. Mayor. I would request, I'd like you to look at this with Bingaman to double check that we can give this money back. Like, I'd be happy for us to pay a few $100 or whatever to Bingaman to just double check that we don't get ourselves caught with this. But if it really is no strings attached, we can walk away from it in a year, then I'm good to go.
I'll second that with his stipulation.
Okay.
Right now, just my 2 cents, I'm a little uncomfortable voting yes on something that I don't know all the rules with.
No, I think we're voting yes to actually getting a copy of whatever the contract's gonna be associated with it.
Or obligation.
Yeah. We're basically saying at this point, we want the money. We're going to take it. And then we get the contract. Then, as you said, it goes to the attorney before I sign it.
As long as everything looks good and there's no concerns in it. I would only ask that before it gets signed, it comes to the council with any concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've got to take it, but, yeah, it's, as long as we know, kind of like, I just said, you know, so as long as we know that there's not gonna be any little hidden
Strings
things
attached.
that can come back and bite us, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with accepting it and getting the contract and having it looked at and over
Yeah.
double, triple checked, and I'm good.
Okay.
For the record, I'm not inclined to actually go forward with using the money at this point, but I am in favor of us having the option for it. So that's as far as I'm looking to go right now.
Okay. Okay.
We can invest it while it's in our account.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to accept the money, to get the contract, to review with the city attorney, and on. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
opposed?
Me, no.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes. All right.
You're still going, well, never mind, sorry.
I skipped one important document. Okay. It's not on the agenda, so we can't deal with it. But what is on the agenda is there was a resolution discussed, brought to my attention about a memorandum of understanding for the new cemetery location, cemetery building location. Is there a resolution that's been passed around, or?
I have not seen one, Mr.
I
Mayor.
haven't seen one.
Is it, for the correction, is it the location and/or the usage of it?
I was under the impression it was specifically where the location of the replacement building is. No, okay.
I think there may be some, well, at least this is my understanding of it. The MOU would not be for the city to sign, nor would this be anything that the city would adopt. It would be for the Lions Club, the Braun Foundation, and the Homemakers to acknowledge that they relinquish any ownership of the building from their contribution, regardless of where it sits. It's just to establish that this was gift, which I believe is already the intent of it, so I don't think there's any new intent being established here. But it's just paperwork acknowledging that the city owns the building in the end,
Okay.
and that we are not sharing ownership of this building.
Okay.
I would say that the cemetery owns the building.
Well, yeah, that's,
We understand that now, but going forward.
Right.
yeah, he's correct.
The
We as
cemetery
the
owns it.
custodians of
So
the,
this
yeah.
is not an action for this body. This is going to be,
Have Bingaman draw that up and then give it to those organizations for them to sign.
okay.
I like that.
I'm guessing hopefully there would be some kind of a template that he could use of, not that his billing ever reflects templates, but something that's standard about just, I guess it wouldn't be a quick claim, but it would be something to just say that,
A use agreement,
you know,
What's the size of the building?
12 by 20.
It's over 200 square feet, so yeah, it would.
Okay. I will confess I screwed up. I wrote a resolution, sent it out to you guys to rescind the state of emergency.
Uh-huh.
So we'll just bring that up at the next go-round, but
because it's not an agenda.
on the next agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we can't vote on that tonight.
Because,
Since time is of an essence,
Yeah.
well, I'll cover that in the mayor's comments. Okay, additions to the agenda.
endowment.
Endowment.
My concerns, and it has been for some time, is that the timing is critical. That I ask fellow council members to, and the mayor, that we work diligently on getting these funds separated as soon as possible is all. And in turn, with the where to put them, I have some suggestions that locals aren't interested in managing those funds, that we turn it over, we come to an agreement and solicit professionals to manage that fund for us.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, I'll give a response and then we'll hear comments. This, for the past week and a half, we've been identifying endowment principal,
Mhm.
so we can get those allocated, because they're not just in the LGIP, but they are scattered through our general fund also, from different pieces that come into it. Once I get those identified, so we know exactly what they are, I'm bringing that number to you guys as the council. I've reread our current codes about the cemetery and its operation, and it largely falls on you guys to, without a cemetery committee or anything like that. It's the cemetery maintenance and management is responsibility of the city council. So, once I get that number to you, then it's up to you guys to figure out where you guys want it to go. Initially, my plan was, but I'll leave it up to you. My plan was to take what isn't endowment out of the LGIP and move it into a savings account to get it separated initially. And then you guys can figure out what you're gonna do with the endowment or whatever. But in lieu of that, I mean, we can just wait until you guys, if you guys.
Okay.
Because the LGIP is valuable, it's a safe place where the money can sit and grow. But if you guys don't want the cemetery funds in there, then I'd rather see the cemetery funds endowment go wherever you guys say they should go.
Because what's the split roughly? Would it be like 550,000 and 130?
200 and something, it's like
200.
a 67,
Yeah.
67%
almost 70%.
of it is
almost
endowment. But like I said, that number in the LJP, that's a big part of it, but that's not all of it. There's every sale, you know, of a burial plot,
Yep.
10% of that goes into the LJIP, so we've got to, I'm sorry, it goes into the cemetery endowment fund by code, so
Yeah.
we have to identify all those separate dollar amounts.
So do we have a Wheatland money market account?
We have a Wheatland money market account, but that would not be the best place for it. They will, Wheatland will let us open a specific savings account at a better interest rate than the money market.
And it would facilitate transfers of a frequency that would allow us to operate the city funds that would be leaving?
We don't touch them now, so yes.
Okay, yeah. I have no problem with that.
I would suggest that once you have the numbers, if you have them before the next council meeting, we put something on the agenda for an executive session for council to go back and discuss what to do with those funds.
Would that be, yeah.
I can pull it up again, but I don't think that qualifies,
If
unfortunately.
it qualifies, be happy to.
Okay.
If
I don't
it's-
think it does either.
But yeah, first, I mean, when I give you guys a number, the reason why I'm not throwing them out right now is because I want to make sure when
we
I got it, I want it to be it, and I have the number or the data
Well,
to
I
back
mean,
it up.
as the
So-
board for the cemetery, because it was handed over to the council, that discussion I don't think should happen at the council meeting.
I don't think you legally have a choice, unfortunately. If we had a cemetery board, it wouldn't, but
Well, technically, we are the cemetery board.
But we
The
can't,
council
we
is.
can't because of the OPMA, we can't legally meet in anything that's not a public meeting unless it qualifies for executive.
Okay, then we'll have to schedule a separate meeting to discuss that fund.
So when you say identify principal, it's not just principal, right? Because the interest, so the money that is the endowments, we put in principal, it has grown,
Right.
but everything that has grown from endowment principal is still endowment.
Say that again.
So,
Or is the way that's set up that everything that has grown from endowment principal is maintenance fund?
if pulled, yes.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's not separated that way. All the funds are in one fund.
Well, okay, so within the LGIP, yes, because the money went in there one time,
Mhm.
and the only thing it's done is just grow interest.
Right.
That's all it's done. But there are other pockets of money within our general fund from the different sale of this. Even the.
That's been added since.
Since, yes.
Has that
Yeah,
all
so-
gone into,
So,
Or
for
is it currently
example,
sitting in the
for
city's
example, if
coffers?
we have donations that are $3,000 into the endowment fund, that money is allocated for the endowment fund, but it never got transferred to the LGIP. It's still sitting in our
Okay.
general funds.
Somebody's backing you up.
Okay,
You're doing good.
okay. So that principle is the endowment fund.
Right,
Then
no, I get,
it's-
I get, well, so, yeah, I didn't state it well. I get that part of it. I guess what I'm saying is, when you do finish and get that right number, that number doesn't change without us putting more principal in, right?
Correct.
Okay,
So anything that's over that is going to be the interest
right, okay.
that,
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't gonna come up with a number and then potentially have that number become outdated before we could vote on it. So that's,
not
yeah,
unless we have a donation. So, the key thing is, what is the principle? What is the principle of the endowment fund?
right.
Yeah, well, what share did it earn? I mean, well, I just brought it up so, you know, so we can get cracking on it. I mean, it's been bugging me for over 4 years.
Yeah,
to-
we've been visiting it and coming up with strategies on how to find it, because there's a lot of history back there. We
Yeah.
can't- So I'm going back to Stan's documents and other things that have been written.
Right.
So, okay,
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It was-
I will have an update on that for the next meeting. Code enforcement was brought up as an addition.
Third Street parking.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to a discussion that we've had over and over, because when I'm out and about, I have people talk to me about code enforcement in general. Some of it was specifically to do with parking along Main Street, and I saw your email, Mr. Mayor, about that, and I appreciate you looking into that. But I just, I know that one of the employee that's doing the code enforcement, or one of them that's doing code enforcement, is currently on leave. I just thought maybe we could have a little discussion of where are we on code enforcement? Where do you think we're going to be in a few months and in a year on code enforcement? Because there is a continued appetite from the city for us to be more adherent to our codes.
So I have, with regard to that, yeah, that's gonna be a deal. I will get the ball rolling with those houses and households, what have you, beforehand. But overall, code enforcement is probably one of the top 3 items that is going to be addressed in 2025. So, everything from nuisance properties, nuisance vehicles, across the board is going to be a key point, a high point of the city.
And do you feel like you have, in context of the difficulties we've had with pursuing code enforcement? So, I mean, myself, you, David's been around for a lot of them. Certainly the 3 of us know that it's not as simple as it seems. But that being said, do you feel like you have what you need to pursue better code enforcement, or do you feel like you need something from the city, the council, that we can provide to help open those doors?
I'd really have to go through things. It's just a matter of whatever code, whichever one it is that we choose to enforce and get actively with. Because I'm sorry, you know, we've got codes that go back to the 70s and 50s that are outdated, and they're not gonna get addressed. Whatever I do, you know, put on the front, it's gonna be applied unilateral. It's not pick and choose the neighborhood, pick and choose the street. It's, when it goes down, it's gonna be done across the board. So, there's probably gonna be some people that are gonna be upset and what have you, and so be it. I mean, it's irrelevant, it's the parking, it's a safety issue. There's a number of things. How many animals, you know, how many dogs somebody has. I mean, if we can go down that path, I don't know how to enforce it necessarily, but, so, I'm just trying to say that when we pick a category that we address, is going to be something that is for the betterment of the city, for the betterment of the community, and it's gonna be unilateral across the board.
The only thing, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add is we got 2 individuals here that probably could be put on the spot later on public comment about the enforcement, how to enforce or any shed light on that? The concerns? That might help us.
So I actually had
Don't
a
mean to
conversation with the deputy last week, kind of pressing me for the same question. So before we start going down and getting the sheriff's office and all the rest of it actively involved, I want to make sure that our codes are something that the prosecutor, and
Right.
if we're gonna involve you, I want the prosecutor to be on board. So
Right.
that's in the back of my head. That's a meeting that I have to have. We have a new prosecutor. I need to get involved, meet him, and find out how do we get, because what's the system that things have to get?
Sector.
It's called Sector.
Sector. So we tried to get Sector uploaded into Sector last year, and we got, hold on, there's problems with your code.
Yeah.
So we
So-
backed off.
But here's the thing, so my understanding is that the problems that prevented that were so pervasive that I don't know if I will be on council long enough to see those all cleared up. So that's not an answer in and of itself. Like we have to, if I'm not saying we can't pursue it. I'm fine. Let's review one ordinance every meeting. Review 2 ordinances every meeting. We can put in the work, but even if we put in a lot of work, we're not going to get in to that system anytime soon. So what are we going to do in the meantime? Or are we just going to say, guess we can't enforce our codes until they're all up to date?
How
Sorry.
many codes do we have?
A lot.
We've got 100 years worth of ordinances that have been converted into codes.
But we have one ordinance, the nuisance ordinance covers
Yeah.
quite a bit of the issues at hand.
So it's gonna be something like that within the nuisance ordinance and what have you, that are currently on the books. How do we get those codified in the Sector?
I thought that was already done.
My understanding is not.
Because we worked pretty hard on it. That,
I think there should be a shelf life to a law. It has to be actually read.
No, I think we should go through and start striking a lot of ordinances.
That's what I'm saying.
And I wanna talk, that's why I wanna talk to the prosecutor, is to find out where the problems are. Because if he can't take it to court, there's no sense in us even going down this path. So find out from him.
Well, but there's 2 different considerations here. There's a is this ordinance good enough to be enforceable? Singular, one ordinance. Or we won't upload your ordinances, plural, until they are okay.
Agreed.
Well, that part's the problem. If it's like, well, I want you to review your ordinance and get it right before we will start working with you on it, cool, we can do that. But if it's like, you need to get all your ordinances fixed before we'll even put this into our system and start touching it, that's a non-starter.
I believe that's one of the things we did fix last year.
I would suggest a workshop where we just,
Well, let me talk to the prosecutor and get that appointment first.
Yeah, we need to come to some kind of, I don't know if we can just upload certain ordinances that we could just like, let's start with the better quality ones and work on enforcing those, are the ones that mean the most to us, but,
Is that doable?
Yeah, you can do that.
okay,
Most towns won't, honestly, most towns use maybe 3.
okay. Well, then we can target that.
Yeah.
all I know is in Phoenix, Arizona, it's illegal to put up a building that produces shade on property you do not own. That is actually a law in Phoenix, Arizona. It
Good
was
luck with that one.
actually put in place over 100 years ago, and it is still enforced today.
That's the same people that come in and take over apartments over the next state.
Okay.
well, those are concerns, yeah. The nuisance ordinance, it encompasses a lot of aspects
Right.
that people are addressing, so.
No, and you worked very hard on that.
Yeah, well, a lot of us time and,
Okay, so that's plan of action. Get together with the
Right.
prosecutor first. Obviously nuisance is the key thing. And parking. So. Yeah, that parking ordinance, for, just so you know, it's like 1978 was when that was put on the books. I don't see why it wouldn't be enforced anymore, but
well,
there it is.
Is there anything, the other thing was the parking you were gonna bring up?
Well, but I thought did you see Joe's email? I
Yeah,
think he,
Which one? I mean,
well, he referenced what he found and how enforceable that would be, and it sounds,
all the parallel parking
Yeah.
versus diagonal and all that, the law enforcement here tonight, could they shed any light for the public or right now for us on that?
They've not
Statewide
seen
highway
it, so-
encroachments. How far you could park next to a highway?
I'd have to look at the RCW.
because
It's 10
regardless,
feet from the center line.
yeah, that's not happening up north.
So, yeah, the bottom line is, our city ordinance says that on Third, from Sherlock to Highway 28 is parallel parking.
Mm-hmm.
There's perpendicular parking going on up there, and
In other places. And
other places,
perpendicular
yeah.
parking is allowed
Well,
specifically for the loading and unloading of a vehicle while it's being loaded and unloaded, period, end of discussion, then it's done. So, no parking that way.
well, I know when the state changed Third into the state route and not Main Street here, that we used to have diagonal parking in this block, in front of here and the grocery store. And then when they did that in '85, they said no more diagonal parking because there was a setback rule. I mean, it was not perpendicular, it was diagonal, like this way, right there. And since they changed that designation of the Third Street here, they said no more of that.
Well, yeah, but on Highway 2
You
all the way
remember that,
down to
right?
Davenport, you park at an angle.
Like the
stop sign.
Yeah, yeah, like and like.
Okay.
So I'm glad somebody's
Good on
on
that.
the.
Okay. City participation in the chamber.
I just saw in claims, not that I think this is a problem, but I saw we re-upped our chamber dues, and I would just, my opinion is if we're going to be a member of chamber, we should have a representative at chamber.
We normally do.
What I've heard is that hasn't happened for quite a while.
It's been spotty. We get busy. There's other things going on. I was gonna be there this last meeting a week ago. And with everything else that happened, I had 3 hours of my day get trashed, so.
Well, I'm not saying I think you should necessarily do it. I think it could be a
No, there's.
council, it
there's
could be, I have no problem personally with it being something that an employee, one of the office staff, if they wanted to do it. I think it's helpful when we come into things like the car show and whatever else. There's information and communication channels there that are important. There's more to it than just about like the promotion of businesses necessarily. It's also a place where we end up coordinating large things for this town. And I think it's important to make sure that we're covered, even if the volunteer hours can't do it.
Can we nominate somebody?
So I will increase or reinforce the importance of that within the office, because it can't always be me, so.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You we're talking about the burning off the ecology park?
Yeah, if you actually walk in there, it's like 3 feet of weeds.
Okay. So because we have this water review going on, when the weather is, when you can start moving your fingers and toes, I'm actually gonna have our public works guys go up there and use the weed whacker and get it completely knocked down. And it's multiple reasons. It's one, just to get it down, but we need to see what's on the ground.
Drive by, throw a match in it.
That's why I'm saying have it burned. The fire department will go in there, they'll light it up, and they'll burn it all the way down to the ground, and
I will mention it to them, but I was cautioned against just assuming that they will do that kind of stuff, so I'll ask.
I've already talked to the fire chief. He says, yeah, they burn it as long as the city requested it.
Okay.
Well, yeah. In fairness, to speak to Joe's apprehensions, I mentioned, because the last time the fire department did a burn and I was on that, I was hearing some chatter about why the city can't take care of its own properties. And while I don't think that the fire department as a whole has a problem doing a burn, I think there's a point there that we have gotten the benefit, the free benefit from the fire department. And I think I said, one, don't go with the assumption they will do it. Like, we shouldn't be presumptive upon the fire department doing it. They're doing that to us as a favor, even though it's a training opportunity. And two, if they feel like they needed any compensation for it, like as the alternative of the hours that it would take and the gas to weed eat it, like if they want a little bit of money to cover anything for it, we can show our gratitude for the fact that they're helping us care for our property was my thought with it. And I also mentioned that I think there was also some confusion when we did that burn on what property was the city's and what properties was the school's, because I know when I was up on that hillside, I'm pretty sure I was burning school property, not city property, but it was framed as city property. So we need to be careful when that slope is there. When we say, can you help us burn our ecology park? The school taking care of its slope is a whole different consideration. If the school wants to do it at the same time, great. But
Agreed, but if we burn it,
Yeah.
and our staff actually does get their certifications for spraying, then they
Yeah.
can spray.
I agree.
Right now, you can't even spray it. There's
Yep.
so much overgrowth that spraying it.
And if you weed whack it, it's gonna end up in your yard. I mean,
When the weeds are
honestly,
this deep.
it's gonna blow in your yard.
It's gonna go someplace.
Well, it's going to
Yeah.
go all over the city.
But we did also talk about tracing that, having the Public Works go through the ditch all the way.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole different.
Well, but I mean,
project.
it starts in that valley and it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'll talk to them. And you're right, the city-owned property does not make it all the way to the school.
The tennis courts there?
No, there are other private owners. The school doesn't even own it. So there's other private owners that go from the properties out to Coal Creek. So, so that's something to be.
Yeah,
aware
there's
of.
two.
Okay. Okay, that was it for additions. Have you guys had a chance to read the council minutes from January 22nd?
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve the minutes. Any discussion?
Nope.
And this is with the amendment from today, right?
Oh, you have, okay, let me look at that, because I did have a question for clarification.
It was just to catch that the vote for Gavin being appointed as pro tem should have been listed as 500 instead of 400.
Oh, okay, that was the update that was sent out today. Okay.
Just for clarifications, where it talks about resolution to record or not to record council meetings, under action, council has decided to continue to record council meetings, has been established. Okay, that's not the one. Okay, this is the one. Action. Council has decided to continue to allow online commenting during streaming of council meetings as has been established until a vote of council can be obtained. From my own understanding, is that something that we agree going forward, or is it, because right now there is no online commenting that I'm aware of.
You can comment on the YouTube video.
I'll say it's coming
It's
through.
rarely done. Some people did it initially when we first started doing a YouTube stream, but I think it's been years since I've seen anyone comment on the YouTube.
But council, I
Yeah,
I
don't know
failed to
if
see
we
this,
discussed
ever hear
that
about it,
as
so I
a
don't know.
Continuance, yeah, I agree with you. I don't recall it being discussed as a continuance of allowing for comments. I don't know that it even really became an issue either way.
Does anybody else, how do they read? I just, for clarification in the minutes is all.
I don't recall us discussing commenting specifically.
I agree. That one.
if the direction was that we're gonna continue to do what we have done until the council comes up with a new direction, that is technically what we've been allowing, even though no one avails themselves of it, so it's not technically wrong.
I got the intent of it is what I'm. You did good, Cassie. I just need clarification on it.
Striking it would possibly be a better reflection of
I don't think that was meant to be
this.
commenting. I'm pretty sure that was meant to be online participation.
Without listening to the tape.
Considering what it says right above it is the online participation during council meetings. And I thought that's what we had agreed to, is we wanted to move to a solution that allowed participation.
Correct. So you view this, the action as something in the future going forward, not post, or I mean,
Well-
pre.
I mean, post that discussion, it was determined we were gonna find out which one of those solutions would work best to,
You know, why can't I just pick out a misspelled word? It'd be easier.
I'm just saying. The context of that word changes the definition of what the discussion was.
Right, you are correct. And that's what's getting me, is that, does it really matter? But I mean,
And you did send out the costs associated with changing that solution to allow online participation.
how do you read it?
Yeah, it was in an email.
I don't think there's
So-
a problem with how it reads.
Okay.
So for the purpose of the minutes, how do you want to fix that?
Well, I would just bring it to the attention. Does anybody else, is it fine?
I believe it should say online participation, not commenting.
So just change that one word.
Yep.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay. I'll second that motion.
Is
Request.
that an amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Accepted.
Other than that, I don't have anything else. It looks good.
Okay.
I mean,
Any further discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we are at
All aboard.
observe the check register. For last time, which is where?
January 22nd through February 10th. Is that the one time it was?
That's the claims, no, that's the claims.
This is the check
It was-
register.
Yeah, it was sent out to you. That's payroll. I don't know that it got out in the packet that I have.
This-
Cassie, was it sent?
Hey, Joe, is it that one or? Am I looking at something
So
different?
this is the check register for the claims, and then one is the check register for the payroll.
Okay.
Okay, so that's payroll, this is claims, the checks
This already
written.
been paid.
A lot of them were EFTs from the last time, I don't check for that, and a check for that. And then this is the claims currently.
Should probably color code
This
these
is
so
the
we don't get
register,
mixed up.
this is the payroll, this is the current.
Yeah.
So it's this one.
Yeah, that's the one I have on the computer.
Oh,
Is
sorry.
it? Okay, excuse the reach. And this is just, it's not an action, it's just observe, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I do know that the lease check for this facility is on there, because we had to get that cut after the last,
Did you want to see it?
which we were allowed to do, because it's a regular customary payment.
Correct.
Okay. Claims, but I don't have the register.
A motion to approve is shown.
Well, that one,
It's not an action, it's just discussion.
I don't have any issues with it.
Yeah, you don't need anything from us, Mr.
no,
Mayor?
not on that one.
Okay.
Payroll, approved January payroll.
Move to approve.
Second.
I've got Gavin, was that the second?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tie.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the payroll. Any discussion?
This is the payroll,
Mhm.
you said?
There's a hard copy.
Okay. I love these computers. Nothing.
The quarter four payments hadn't hit by the time of this meeting, so those quarter four payments, the payroll payments, will be on the next meeting's
Okay.
claims, okay?
Okay, thanks.
On the payroll, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Negatives? Thank you. Okay, claims for, current claims for February 12th.
Wow, John Hancock, you sign in Sharpie.
Motion to approve as requested or presented.
Let me try it. See how it feels.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments on the claims?
The excavator, no, see, was that on there?
Thanks.
Yeah, some belts, there's a little mini, was that,
There was, I thought it was for the backhoe, I thought I indicated that it was for the backhoe.
it says mini X rental.
Well,
And I said, oh, okay. It doesn't matter, I just, is that a
Is-
residual?
that must be a residual.
It's $665.80.
That, yes. That was,
Is this the attorney?
it was a one-day rental.
No.
Okay.
I think that was right
That would
as we
be
were getting
to do with the water
purchase
system.
the land.
Okay.
No
So,
no big is.
Yeah, and Bingham's not on there.
I just wonder if they're hitting us extra
Don't see
charges
it.
after the fact, you know.
No, that was, that should be
No, he's not
one
on
last
there.
one.
And I just assume this is a monthly
Sunshine,
fee.
okay.
It's at 12.
Don't bring that up.
Okay, I'm
Unless you want to be here for another hour.
I'm good.
Okay. Any further discussion on the claims?
No.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the claims signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any negatives? Okay. All right. My comments. I've got plenty, but I'll try to keep them brief.
Not everybody signed that.
What's that? Oh,
I'll send it around the horn here.
thanks. Okay. Last week, we had the state auditor's office final exit report. They audited a whole bunch of stuff, but the bottom line is the areas that they found of concern was in years 2021 to 2023. There were a couple of circumstances involving employees that are no longer with the city that were inadvertently overpaid vacation than what they earned. And I think that was in part some of the confusion with the carryover and the difference in the employee handbook, what was then and what is now. So anyway, it was over and done with, but that's, I mean, am I summarizing that pretty clearly?
Yeah.
That was about the only thing that they found that they wanted to have cleaned up, and I think we've already cleaned it up both with the handbook and our payroll service kind of
Right.
tidies that right up.
Right, it does.
We had also an audit from the Department of Retirement Services that came to a conclusion. There were some corrections that we had to do. Mostly had to do with some misunderstandings and misinformation that we got as far as how we report hours to them. We've gotten those corrected too. Let's see what, one person worked more hours throughout the year than the DRS allowed, so there's some adjustments needed to be made there. Apparently the mayor is allowed to contribute and be part of the DRS system, and the mayor was not notified himself, so that was a ding. And bottom line is the corrections have been reviewed and implemented, and we should not go down that path again. Fire hydrants, speaking of fire protection, we're going to be looking at getting 2 replaced and 1 re-added. So there's 2 fire hydrants in town that are just, they're leaking and not working, so we're working with, I'm working with actually our water supply operator, who's able to get them somewhat at a cost, because they buy a lot of them. So we're working with them to try and get pricing. We want to get those replaced so the fire department is up to full swing. The third one is one that apparently is down here on Third. There used to be one there, but apparently some years ago it got hit by a vehicle and it was removed and never replaced. So
Sounds about right.
So we're gonna get that replaced.
What do we do with the old hydrants?
I don't know. I think we have fun with them.
So what cross street? Third and
Third and Alice. It's where the Methodist church is.
Did it get hit, or did it get, they put a new line or something on the project?
My understanding is a number of years ago, somebody hit it with a car and damaged it, and instead of replacing it, they just
so you're talking about like on the corner in front of where Nathan Luck was?
across the street from, yes.
Or Gene
So,
Park, but-
kitty corner from the Nazarene Church.
I think Gene Corby hit it.
Yeah.
So it'd be on
You know about
the,
this?
on the southwest corner of that intersection.
So it'd be, yeah.
That's my understanding.
Well, it's
I
not
didn't
on
go
e-dispatches, so.
I didn't physically.
Yeah,
go
I'm
look
guessing
for
it was removed long enough ago that, yeah, that would make sense. That is one big gap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, if you guys have not picked up on it, Harrington is not going to experience some of the shortcomings that they've experienced in California. I mean, wildfires are a danger, we can't stop that, but I'll be damned if I just let it roll into town. So we're going to be actively getting the town as prepared and fireproofed as we can.
Does that mean you're gonna put a hydrant on Coal Creek?
You put a
When the new well's
We
there.
put a new well in, yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna do what I can, where we can, so, I'll get into a little bit of that. Well, I'll just update it right now. Our public works person has taken his weed control test.
Oh, yeah.
We're waiting for the results. I don't know why would you take a Scantron and there's only 8 people in the class. It takes over a week to get the results back, but he's waiting. And it didn't come today, so as soon as I hear that it's done, he feels pretty good about it. There was 2 parts that he took. He knows he nailed the one. The other one, he was a little bit iffy because there was some formulas that had to be calculated that he just didn't have memorized. So
And one thing that we need to probably revisit, because I think we touched on this a little bit at the end of last year, but our part, thank you to him, our obligation in response to that is we need to talk about how much money we're pinning on certifications. Because I don't want to overpromise, but there at least was a period of time where the council was favorable to him getting a pay bump as a result of that certification.
with that and other benefits or other certifications for different things.
Yeah, so we need, now that that's a thing, or probably before now we should have, but we need to make sure that we are clear on what he gets as a response to that.
I think we should handle that in the next handbook.
Yep.
section.
Is it just the one, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, was that just the one employee or both public works?
Just the one has gotten through it so far.
But we still plan on the other one?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I want both of them done. So,
Good.
awesome.
Thank you for
yep.
chasing that.
So we've applied for, the city has applied for a grant, if you will, through Emerald Creek, our new water operator, or wastewater treatment operator in this case. We're supposed to, as a city, have 2 auto samplers. We have none, and we've never had one. So the Department of Ecology has an opportunity where they are literally giving away the machine to different municipalities. They've got X number throughout the state to give away, so we've applied to get one, so hopefully we can get one there. $4 to $5 grand a piece.
So what do these things do?
Has to do with wastewater sampling and testing, and apparently it's a device that tests it over the period of 24 hours or something like that.
By getting one of these, does that reduce the workload of the tester coming in?
It will help us into the future getting our Anatech testing reduced, along with the next
All for
thing I have to
that.
tell you. I don't know if you guys saw on the door, but our wastewater treatment plant modification and rebuild has been approved. And is currently out to bid. So that is going at full steam. I have some checking to do about the funding for it, which has been long approved, but with some of the changes in Washington DC, I need to make sure that we are not going to be impacted by some of those restrictions that have been put on temporarily. But we're going full steam ahead with the request for bids. So, garbage contract, I met with them today. We're starting the negotiations of getting a 5-year plan for them to keep the billing and working hand in hand and getting some of these deficiencies, both in the city and the communications between Sunshine and the city, rectified, so that we can, basically, they can keep the billing, or we can go forward and we can get the people in town in compliance. They're out of compliance right now, so.
Was there just 2 issues that they had? The billing and then the,
Non-payment.
yeah, there was something else.
Well, they wanted a rate raise.
Well, they want a rate increase. Part of that is the, just a pass through of the solid waste costs at the tipping station,
Right.
the garbage station, but then additional expenses and just overall. So we're gonna get all that negotiated on what we need to do. We do have a public hearing. Hopefully we'll have all our information, so we'll do a public hearing on March 12th to discuss what, if any, rates we need to look at for the garbage utilities. So,
And they'll tell us that, won't they?
well, yeah, I told them I need numbers next week, so we can start working on them. I've got 2 more items. A quick question. We've had our fire truck has been for sale for a long time. Would there be any opposition to pulling it out, polishing it up, and putting it in the car show with a big for sale sign on it?
Free till we get home.
For $1?
Free to a good home, I like that.
No,
Would there be any opposition to it?
No.
Okay.
is there, going forward, is there any, with the museum and stuff in the city, could they somehow utilize it?
They don't probably have a building that could house it.
Right, but I mean, before we,
I would like to see it do something before that building falls down on top of it.
Right.
or worse. So
How much is the city asking for it?
whatever it
at
takes.
this point, it's almost like whatever we can get for it.
It was 15,000, well, we looked, Levi and I looked at this nationwide, and they ranged from, I think, from $1 all the way up to like 15, 20,000. But the $15,000-$20,000 rigs were mint condition, you know, they even had a Dalmatian on them, you know, it was just good to go. This one's not in that good a shape, so we took it down to what, 5,000? We had a buyer.
Levi listed it, yeah, I mean, we had a lot of people that would talk at us.
Yeah.
No one would write a check for $10.
Well, not when their wife found out about it.
Yeah.
That went goodbye.
So the bottom line is,
there was
no one
some-
opposes for it to show up in the car show.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I'll take it from
really
there.
good behind the hotel.
No, no.
On top of it.
You offering a free
Rotate.
paint job there?
You could make it do a nosedive in one of the wheat fields.
But I think for just a
I'm familiar
you know,
with Apple
part-
stuff, so what was the code?
It's just a thought, you know, the museum, if anybody would, you know, if it
Change
means
it, help you
anything,
change
you
it
know,
if you want.
history or whatever they could.
Such
but
as skip
Other than that,
odds.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
I'm just,
4, 6.
like I said, I know it's been for sale, that there's been a resolution to put it for sale, that's still outstanding, so
well, it's still an open, it's still for sale.
just communicating when you guys see it.
Emails, first name, dot last name, @harrington.city.
Ooh.
I'll probably be soliciting somebody in the crowd on.
Is it in the
fire that
40s?
thing up and drive it.
50, what year is that? Do you remember, Stephen?
Huh?
What year that old gal is?
Okay, last item.
Got a unique.
Pre-war.
It's not pre-war.
The Civil War, I think.
It's come up a couple of times to talk about what they refer to as a consent agenda. Are you guys familiar with what that is?
This is coming from who? When?
It's come from a couple of different places. A way to streamline these council meetings
Oh,
is to use what they call a consent agenda.
not aware of it.
Okay, so what we would do is we would effectively put the routine items, the claims, the payroll, the minutes, which are always part of our meetings, put them into one motion. So basically, when the time came for that, someone would motion to approve or disapprove or whatever of those items as a package,
As a group.
as a group. Now, it would mean that you guys would need to look through those documents initially, and at the beginning of our meeting, if there was something like tonight's minutes where you found a discrepancy or something that you weren't
right.
going to just approve with everything else,
Right.
then you can, at that time, pull that one document out to be approved or disapproved or adjusted separately. But if you look at all the documents and see that they're approved, or that you're okay with it, then we can shave 10, 15 minutes off time by just approve the consent agenda and just have all of them approved all at once and we're done.
Number of the cities do this, school boards, the county commissioners.
Yeah. It just, and it's not saying that if you have an issue or a question with the payroll, you just say, I want the payroll pulled out of the consent agenda, and it pulls out, and we address that in turn.
Right. Doesn't stop you from commenting.
Yeah.
Stops, and there's only one signature on the signature page instead of 3.
So basically, you could make, if you have an issue or something, a discussion, you could pull out of any one, just like we do now.
Well, I think you'd have to, if had an exception, one out of the three items, then in the beginning, before we even put it as a motion item, you just pull that one out.
It puts more onus on the council to come in having read everything, so that if you have something you want to pull, you say, I want to pull this item from the consent agenda.
Or not, or you just don't read it and, I mean, I know when on the school board, I know that there was people that didn't read the consent agenda. They just figured it was right, and so that's,
Well, they do that now on council. I mean,
well, I'm sure that's
so
true.
yeah. So what's the real advantage? You're looking for a time savings or?
Yeah.
Just for the,
Okay.
and it would be for those items that are just routine housekeeping, just.
Basically minutes, checks,
Minutes and checks. Payroll
yeah,
and claims.
And claims.
Yeah.
So all that you have to do that is just lump them all together and say, we're gonna vote, guys, motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
good for the consent agenda.
Yeah.
And so you'd be approving the
Try it,
minutes.
yeah.
and-
Okay, so I'll put that on the agenda next time, and we can kind of muddy our way through it.
And what I read here, we can do it on a trial period without passing an ordinance for it at this point.
Okay.
If we do it permanently, then we have to.
Okay.
pass
Resolution
something.
or ordinance?
Resolution,
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
which one do we need? I mean,
It'd be a resolution,
Yeah.
because, yeah.
Okay,
okay, what the heck?
we'll give it a
Just-
try. Helps keep things
Do you know
up,
where it's at in here?
so.
This has
Okay, that's all
no
I had.
good.
So one thing
Any
that's,
of our
I
public
have
any
the AWC
additional
handbook
comments
on
or
here,
Okay.
and then.
Mayor, I'll
when
just
we're
real
in
quick on
here,
the
should be able
city
to
code
search.
topic. So most municipalities have decriminalized city code. There's some legal precedents for this. So really, you're talking about civil infractions in nature. The prosecutor won't enforce those. So what the issue you're having is through district court. I would suggest talking to Melissa over at Wilbur City Hall. She's the clerk over there. She went through this process and was able to get their codes codified with the court system. So what it really would boil down to is there's a certain amount of legwork a city would do, and then if someone wasn't complying, we could come in, we could cite them at that point. If the person challenged that or didn't pay, then it would be up to your actual city attorney to prosecute that.
Right, I know that one.
Okay, so really the county prosecutor doesn't really have anything to do with that.
Okay.
So who could write the actual infraction?
Well, you guys can actually you could empower your own, if you had a city
Right.
crew member, some towns do that. Some towns use us to do that. Our biggest thing is if we're gonna be doing that, we ask you to do some of the legwork, talk to them first, send them a letter.
Yeah, we have a whole
And then-
procedure. to
Yeah,
do that,
okay,
yeah.
and most do, they're just vary a little bit. But then at that point, if they're not compliant, we don't have an issue citing them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
The motion to adjourn at 8:51. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.